All right, franchise friends, family, everybody in franchising, thank you so much for joining us on our inaugural launch of Let's Grow, not Let's Grow, of LFG. Our, what do we call
Nailed
it?
it.
Is it an episode? I guess it's an episode, right?
It's an episode.
An episode. All right, welcome to our inaugural launch of LFG. Liane, what does LFG stand for?
It stands for Let's Grow. Let's
Let's
effing grow.
let's franchising grow. Yes.
Not what the F is for.
Uh, anyways, thank you so much, guys, for joining us, and we look forward to providing you with lots of content and education and a little bit of fun, I suppose. And for those of you that don't know, my co-host Liane, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our first episode. I think this is so exciting. We have been talking about this for a very long time. And finally, in our spare time, we were able to make this happen. So thanks, everyone, for all of your support. Super excited about all of this. But I am Liane Caruso, and I am the founder of Hello CMO, which is a franchise marketing consultancy. And I primarily specialize in fractional CMO work. I am also the co-founder, co-owner, co-CEO of Franchise Assembly.
Were you promoted?
Yeah, I promoted myself. But yes, Franchise Assembly and the co-founder of Hello Mastermind.
Love it. For those of you that don't know me, Michael Hyam, I mostly clean up around here and let Liane shine. I kid you. Yes, co-founder as well of Franchise Assembly and run the National Franchise Show with a circuit of franchise events across the country.
Hey, Michael, where are you today?
I am in my house in Toronto.
Are you drinking for lunch?
No, I don't know why I thought this would be a cool background. It was probably a silly decision in hindsight, but
Very professional.
you gotta own it. So it's too late, and
It's
this is gonna be
franchising.
my background from now on. What am I gonna do?
It's good.
Where are you?
I'm in my office / gym in Tampa, Florida.
It looks kind of like a bedroom back there.
No.
All right. Great. And tell us, Liane, who do we have up today?
Well, today we have Madeleine Zook, and our podcast is unfiltered franchise education, and so who better to be the first guest is the most unfiltered person we know. She is likely to drop some F-bombs, so please put your AirPods in. But we've got Madeleine Zook. She's the CMO of Premium Service Brands, the co-founder of Fran Careers, plus everything else that she does. She's involved in a lot if you follow her on LinkedIn. But super excited. She's going to be talking about lead gen, both consumer and Fran Dev, to see what's going on, what's working, what's not working. I know everybody has those questions because it feels like a lot of things aren't working, and then some brands it's working. So she's got some answers for us. And Michael, when we were at Let's Grow in February in Dallas, Madeleine's session was the most talked about and the most highlighted in our feedback. And mostly all good, except the F-bomb. Some people didn't like that, but she does not care.
Fantastic. Yes, I loved her session. I mean, I loved all of them. I liked Michael Browning's too, and and a whole bunch of others. Liane,
Are you
don't
going to
single
name
out
drop?
any one person.
I'm not singling out, but she just happens to be on our episode, and she's the
I
most
know. I'm
unfiltered person
joking.
that we
I'm
know.
joking.
So
Maddie is phenomenal. I'm sure everybody here knows her. Yes. So getting to the episode, we would tell you a little bit about how the podcast is being the inaugural episode, how it's going to be structured. So we want to tell you a little bit about a couple of different segments that we're going to have on. Our first one being what's growing on, which will be, a little bit of news, a little bit of what's happening, a little bit weather, sports, all that kind of fun stuff. That's what's going on. Liane, tell us about Franchise Royals.
So Franchise Royals, I think this is a fun segment. As most people know, Michael and I are obsessively on LinkedIn, or people think that anyway. So what we're doing is just paying attention to people and brands who are doing really cool things, just kind of keeping an eye on accomplishments and highlights and job openings and new businesses, and just being excited for people. So just shouting out virtual high fives to our Franchise Royals.
Love it. And tell us about Show and Tell.
And Show and Tell, Michael, is our segment. It's kind of the
Yes,
bulk.
Liane.
It's kind of the bulk of the episode, and that's where we bring in franchise industry experts talking about what they know best, and then talking about best practices, tips and tricks, things that are going on in the franchise world, financial, real estate, construction, marketing, legal, all of that good stuff. All the burning questions you need to know, we'll bring them up in show and tell.
That's great. Yes, and that's going to be our largest and longest segment. Of course, just trying to provide more content and education to our niche franchise industry. And our last segment will be Franchise Mingle. Now, Franchise Mingle is not named Franchise Mingle because we purchased franchisemingle.com. So I just have to say that we don't know what we're doing with franchisemingle.com yet, but it happens to be for sale as well. If I joke. Oh my gosh. Okay, Franchise Mingle is what's going on, events that are coming up, things to look out for. Have you signed up for XYZ event and all that fun stuff where we're gonna mingle it out. All right, so let's get to it. Here's what's growing on. This segment is sponsored by Franchise Assembly, a franchise events company bringing resources and education to franchise brands and people. Liane, take it away.
Okay, so I can't believe this is the very first piece of news that I'm going to share in our very first episode, but I'm obsessed with the Wild Birds Owl Cam. Wild Birds Unlimited encourages everyone to experience a day in the life of a barred owl family. So this is super cute. They have the mama owl and 3 baby owlets. By the time this episode comes out, they're going to probably be about 3 months old, but they're super cute to watch. The owlets hatched in late March and will be expected to stay together until early fall when they'll finally strike out on their own. If anyone has been on a Zoom call with me, I have brought the live cam on as a guest, and we sit and we watch the owls while also professionally meeting. Because I am obsessed and I love them and they're so cute. But if you want to watch the live bird cam of the live barred owls and those cute little babies, you can go to Wild Bird's website, which is wbu.com/owl-cam. Hey, Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you know that consumers are opening their wallets more selectively these days?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but yeah. Yes, I did notice the trend.
I feel like I keep opening my wallet, but feeling pressures of inflation and housing costs, they're eating out less often, at less expensive times or places, and weighing their spending choices more carefully in 2024, making franchises work harder to earn their business. According to Marigold's 2024 Global Consumer Trends Index report, that half of the consumers it asked feel pessimistic about the economy. One of the things that's interesting about that for all of you restaurant brands out there, that breakfast is big in 2024. So for a consumer who loves restaurants, they're flipping the script and going to breakfast or brunch because it's less expensive. But they close out the article with the outlook for 2024 and beyond. The conference board predicts that as long as consumers believe that their jobs are safe and can make their regular monthly payments, they will continue to spend and borrow. Spending patterns should be normal all year, but pay attention to jobs and employment numbers to determine if trends will shift.
That's so funny. That's a great one. I don't know if you heard this. Last month, McDonald's announced that they're partnering with Krispy Kreme donuts. So they're going to make 3 donuts available. 3 donuts available for breakfast for breakfast, and they're hoping to expand this for the next couple of years. So that's kind of cool. Who doesn't like Krispy Kreme donuts? Everyone will say they don't, but I know you all like it. All right, so for my news, this piece was great. Our favorite list right now, entrepreneurs' fastest growing franchise brands. These are companies that are leveraging their ability to scale fast across the US and Canada. Topping the list, Stratus Building Solutions for the second year in a row. Yes, shout out to our friends, Rob, Doug, Mike. Congrats. Second is Crumble, followed by Jersey Mike's. I guess there's something to the commercial cleaning, right? With Jan Pro, Corvus, all in the top 10. Anyways, go to entrepreneur.com to see the full list with 150 brands. Liane, tell us about FBR.
Yes. Well, we all love and know FBR, Franchise Business Review. So this is for their franchising at work, employee feedback, research, and awards. The deadline is 5/31, and this is for all franchise employers. That be franchisors, franchisees, franchise suppliers, to participate in this award and research. So basically, it recognizes the best franchise companies to work for based on responses from the people who know the company best, their employees. So if you want to survey your employees and find out how they really feel about you, contact FBR. Deadline is 5/31. Go to their website to learn more.
Love FBR. Who the hell's gonna want to do that? I'm just joking. I'm just saying that. No.
Hey,
let's go. Yes, do
feedback. Feedback is important. It's the only way to grow your business.
it. Of course.
Applies to franchisors too.
I kid.
You watch your mouth.
It's open to franchisors and suppliers, so everyone can go and share in the information. Registration May 31st. All right. So if you want to share other what's growing on news, we are happy to take it. We'll share it in person and live, and I mean on this podcast, I guess. Email it to podcast@franchiseassembly.com, and we will gladly share what's growing on. Liane, Franchise Royals.
Do, 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 do.
Is that our official
It
buzzer?
is now. It is now. Michael, this segment is sponsored by Hello Mastermind, professional development peer advisory groups for franchise professionals and executives. We currently have executive franchise marketers and franchise development execs with just a few spots left. Visit hello-mastermind.com for more info. All right.
I love those guys at Hello Mastermind.
Oh my God, they are the
cool.
best.
They are.
The Mastermind folks are just top notch. So I'm gonna tell you who my franchise queen is this episode. Super shout out to Catherine LeBlanc, who just launched Dear Franny, which is another podcast that we can put on our playlist, and also Franchise Fractional. So this one, of course, near and dear to my heart because I am a fractional executive. So she's bringing resources together for all of those franchise executive professionals who are out there offering those kinds of services, whether it be marketing, COO, CDO, all of that good stuff. And then it's also kind of like a one-stop shop for brands who are looking for a fractional executive to go and see who's available and what their skills and talents are to see if it's a good fit. So congrats, Catherine. I'm super excited for you.
Congrats, Catherine. Love it. Awesome. That's great news. And my franchise, no, she's not my queen, but yes, but
she's
my franchise queen is, yes, she's my franchise queen. Absolutely. Megan Rosen. Megan, we love you. We saw a week or two ago that you had launched Rosen Franchise Consulting, personalized consulting agency, helping small business owners thrive on their path to franchising and becoming a franchise. That is awesome. Congratulations. And we know you're still CDO at Next Brands and SFV and all the things you do. So congrats, Megan. That is awesome.
Yes. Congrats, Megan. We're super excited for you. All right. Before we move on to show and tell, we'd like to take a quick commercial break.
No dun 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Unlock your franchising potential with Tenant Financial Group, where they treat you individually, crafting tailored funding packages to suit your unique situation. They are here to fund your franchise so you can focus on growing your dreams. From their innovative Rob's 401k funding to SBA loans, leasing, and a range of other loan products, they are your partner in successfully funding your franchise. Visit tenantfinancialgroup.com today and experience the difference. Tenant Financial Group, your trusted partner where franchise funding is simple, transparent, and honest.
All right, let's do it. Let's bring Madeleine Zook on. I'm so excited. I was just saying that, this is our first podcast and it's unfiltered. And who better to be the most unfiltered? It's you.
As I roll up with a Bud Light, a bottle of champagne,
and sunglasses. It's Friday.
Hey, in Madeleine's honor, from Let's Grow, I saved the bottle.
Yeah, you did. People still talk about that. They're like, oh, I was talking to Kelsey the other day from Bloom and Blinds, and I was like, I don't know if we've met. I've met Christopher. He's like, we did at Let's Grow. You had a bottle of tequila in your hand. I was like, blame Justin Mink from EOS because he sent that to my room. It wasn't me.
Perfect. It just gets you more unfiltered, which we all love.
Right, because we need that.
Yes, we do need that. So today, your show and tell, you're gonna drop some knowledge on lead gen for consumer, lead gen for Fran Dev, and so we're really excited to hear what you have to say. And be as unfiltered as you'd like to be. This is this one's for you.
Well, no, thanks for having me. I'm super honored to be number one. And I like being like show and tell. That's kind of like, I don't know, I like feel cool. I'm like, yeah, I'm the show and tell, which probably in most cases is not the good thing, but I'm just it does. And also, I made my husband take all the kids out and I framed it as like, oh, it's going to be too loud for the podcast. But no, now I can be truly unfiltered.
Yes.
So I'm like, ooh, that's a mommy word. So it's funny that you were like, hey, you know, what is some new trends that you're seeing in Fran Dev? Because for the most part, both of us, and you know, you included Michael, kind of have a gist on Fran Dev. And as much as things change in Fran Dev, it doesn't change. However, I think right now, and it's so funny because I literally formulated this thought like an hour ago, drinking margarita at the bar with my husband when we were talking about like lead costs and Fran Dev. And I was like, oh my God, I think I figured it out. I was like, I should run the economy. I should not run the economy, but that's how it feels. This knowledge bomb I'm going to drop. Mind you, some people may have already figured this out, but just let me have it. So I think Fran Dev right now is what's called the bubble. The problem is that right now everyone is obsessed with selling as many units as possible. It doesn't matter if you are using a Fran Dev outside company, if you're doing it inside, if you're a good franchisor, or it may not have the best intentions. Everyone's obsessed about unit count. It's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like a superficial like metric for franchising because like how pretty are you, how skinny are you, like the bigger the number the better, no matter kind of what's behind the curtain, i.e. your personality, i.e. your actual EBITDA, right? And because of this, I think one of the primary drivers is because there's everyone else is doing it, so we follow the flock. And two, a lot of what's happened in the last 3 to 4 years is private equity is buying up a ton of franchises, and they are doing it with the ones that have a lot of unit counts because they're looking at those numbers and, you know, trajectory. And ideally, if you want to get involved in a sell, then you have to have the numbers to start. And so with the onslaught of FSOs and also their partnerships with brokers, and you know, I have friends in that work in both sectors, so I certainly am not trying to hit on what brings, you know, food on the table for other people, but I will say that it's put such a pressure on franchise brands and their bottom line that I now think that it's hurting franchisees. So the bubble now I'm talking about is, you know, you've got this big kind of arc, you would think, like, and everything starting to, or I guess bubble, everything starting to kind of go closer to the sun, right? We'll say the sun is private equity. And the brokers, because of how Google and SEO and digital trends all work, they're all driving organic costs up too. So right now, if you don't include the broker onboarding fees and retreat costs, it's probably somewhere around $28,000 to $30,000 to close one acquisition with a broker. That doesn't necessarily, well, it does include their commission, but it doesn't include inflated commissions, right? We're talking like a $30,000 commission. And so typically organic is somewhere around 16 to 20, and that's for a more established brand that has a digital footprint. Now, because brokers are also driving those organic costs up to get their own leads, and along with like lead portals, it's almost impossible for emerging brands or maybe smaller brands to get any sort of exposure in the Fran Dev space especially if they're not some sort of sexy consumer driven brand where consumers come in the first 24 months and they buy up a bunch of territories and everything's great and it's free and we love Fran Dev, because now the market share on those keywords is strictly going to FSOs and brokers and maybe some of the big companies. And they're gathering most of that initial interest. So up until I would say now, emerging brands or brands that really get it have sort of been able to compete. And that's also due to, maybe pre-established relationships with broker networks. But I think we're at the top now where private equity has learned fast that it's not just about the numbers. And so now it's going to be all of these franchisors that have competed in this rat race that is Fran Dev, that has all of these units, and they're like, cool, like, look at how many units I have, buy me, buy me, buy me. And private equity is going to say, no, thanks. Like, I want to see your churn. I want to see your AUV. I'm going to make some calls and see if this is a brand I really want to buy. And then all of a sudden, they don't, there's going to be a lot of brands that don't have the infrastructure to support it and are going to stop doing it. And then we're going to see a shift now that private equity is now going to stop looking at, closest to the sun and maybe more on who doesn't have the most units, but has the most producing units, who hasn't been focusing on Fran Dev. Maybe they've got 2 brands instead of 9, but those 2 brands are crushing it. So then the focus is going to be more on their AUV and, more steady, I would say, numbers. And I don't know how to say that other than not just the flashy Fran Dev unit numbers. And because of that Fran Dev race to the finish line is going to calm down a lot. A lot of people are going to stop spending, overspending, and having these hugely inflated goals of unit counts. And so sales, I think, are going to decline with brokers. And like I said, now all of a sudden costs are going to start coming down. There's less of a focus, there's less of a search, there's less of a pressure. And it's going to allow organic to then level out with brokers. So it just seems to me right now that it just doesn't make sense, because what typically was, if you want to work with brokers, it's super expensive, $30,000 minimum. And if you want to use that, that's your CPA, and that's a high CPA. So anything under that is a win. But now it's almost the baseline. Like, even organic is climbing because, like I said, they're all starting to bid on those same keywords and costs. And that's just not feasible. You can't tell an emerging brand, if you want to open 5 a year, it's $15,000 or whatever it is. I mean, each, or $30,000 each. And so eventually, the bubble's going to pop. And I think that's where we are, because I've talked to some broker networks lately and they're like, no, honestly, if you want to compete now, because all of the brands have flocked to them because organic isn't working, they can't spend as much to keep up with the brokers. And at that point, they might as well just join the broker networks. They're saying, nah, if you really want to compete, you can't pay 30,000. You should be paying 40 or 45 or 50. And that's just it's not going to work. And also, I have so many brokers and consultants that come to me personally and they say, help, how do I get leads? And I'm like, I have no solve for you. Like, I will not take on a consulting client, because essentially they have to advertise against everyone, including their own broker network, to get their own leads. And they're advertising a free service for a high cost, product or brand. And it's hard. I've worked with them in the past and it's really, really tough. So I think, sooner rather than later, we're going to start seeing the shift of private equity acquiring those with the biggest numbers, and private equity acquiring those or investing more in those that have a better franchisee satisfaction. And that's going to start being a big teller, because private equity is not stupid. They know that happy franchisees are probably making money. So that's my big that's how I'm going to explain it now, because we know that at Let's Grow, we were preaching on, Fran Dev is not cheap. It's not going to come cheap. It's expensive, but at some point it has to give, because, I think the number was, for every 600 franchises that come in every year, 600 leave. And if franchising is going to continue and continue being a steadfast industry, eventually it's going to balance itself out. And I think that it will in the coming year or two. And definitely in, 3 to 4 years, I think the rave of private equity and bias for millions and millions of dollars is going to still stay, but there's definitely, like I said, going to be more of a shift towards unit economics and franchisee satisfaction rather than Fran Dev, because one of these big private equity companies, and God love you if you are out there and you've already figured it out, but it's not public, but one of, if not a lot of them, are going to figure out that the more you focus on unit economics and that franchisee satisfaction, the better off your Fran Dev is going to grow and the faster it's going to grow. And they're going to think like, oh my God, we just matched the silver bullet. And really, we're going to be back on this podcast in 3 years. Like, congratulations, you have fixed what you broke. So that's my big take on Fran Dev right now. Costs are what they are. I don't see them decreasing. But again, you have to ask yourself, what is the why? Is the why because you want to keep up with the Joneses and franchising and say we've got all of these units? Is the why because you truly want to sell in 3 to 5 years to P&E? Or is the why that you truly think that you can help people and support them and establish that, and that's your goal? And if that's your goal, great. But I would beg to say it's probably 2 of the latter rather than that.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
I literally thought you were gonna say that's fucked up.
I actually, there are a few thoughts in there. For sure, I know that's a great thought. It makes a lot of sense. With when I'm thinking about the brokers too, the essence of the broker is they get the lead, however they get the lead, and then they'll be the ones pushing it, hopefully in the best interest of the client that wants to buy that franchise. But, when you have one of those top tier, franchises that have a lot more money and they're going to offer you a franchise fee, which is double what some others can, then, naturally a broker will gravitate to wanting that double that commission. And so that will push, those units out a lot more than someone within a merging or micro merging that cannot afford that. And so I think that's very interesting with that whole system of the brokers as to how that could, push that drive that you just talked about.
And it's funny because and a lot of times the brokers flock to the multi-packs, right? And as a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee, listen, unless you are the most capitalized and prepared with management you can be, it's hard. It's hard to open multiple units, let alone at once, let alone, in a very quick timeline. And some of these brands that have great support, such as Z-Bar, they've just started using brokers, and they're not on the map for brokers because they haven't been, but they're one of the best brands out there. And yeah, they do a multi-pack, but it's not the typical, oh, we're going to sell 10 and it's going to look great. Like, they sell it because the numbers make sense. And I was talking to Larissa and I was like, yeah, you would think brokers would jump all over this, but because you're newer in the broker space, just because you haven't had to use them or haven't wanted to in the past, you're not going to see a fire right away, because brokers aren't necessarily looking at the best of the breast of the veteran brands. Most of them are looking at commission first and close rates. And what I would love to see the brokers get back to is more
Disclaimer, that's Maddie's thought, not mine.
My thought.
I'm just kidding.
But my goal, and this is, like I said, this is just Maddie's hot take, is when we brought on brokers at Made Pro, and we were about 300 units, we really were looking to utilize them so that we could tap into a lot of local networks that we weren't already getting organic in certain areas of Texas, some places in Omaha or Ohio. And I think because right now it's so expensive to get leads, even if you are a broker digitally, like most of the brokers that do very well, it's a referral network, right? They've got great referrals. We can call it their local marketing, right? If you're a franchisee, it would be really cool if brokers start getting back to, or making it more of a strategy for the broker, maybe platforms of like the specific area brokers. Like, I'm not doing well in Ohio. I would pay to get 2 placements in Ohio, and those brokers focus on their places in Ohio and using their local networks and seeing what's going to work in the community and seeing what's not. And I think that that would be a much more successful strategy for on the broker side, because then again, it's very much like a franchisee model where you're going to have digital and it's going to drive, but you got to go out and work work the streets, get on the corner. No, but go do those business referrals and door hanging and meet the franchisees in your area and tap into their networks and make it more of a local franchisee marketing thing rather than, hey, we've got 700 brokers that will sell anywhere, anytime. I mean, it's a kind of a shotgun approach, and I think, I don't know, maybe we make it a little bit more targeted, and it might be better and easier for everyone overall.
So do you think the investment firms, sorry, Michael, do you think the investment firms are kind of now taking this responsible franchising approach? That's kind of what I hear. That's your
Listen,
is that what I gathered from that?
I'm gonna get sued. No, they're like I said, I have personal experience with a couple private equity. I've talked to a lot of people who have different experiences. I mean, I think it depends on your brand. It depends on who's managing your portfolio and who's managing them and their experience. It varies wildly. I would say that they're not necessarily turning their guns to responsible franchising, but I think that that sort of trend has made enough noise that people are listening and they are putting 2 and 2 together. And that's part of the learning curve of, oh, I'm now realizing like I can't piss franchisees off because this thing they call validations is actually hurting bottom lines. It's not franchisees making noise and we're at the top trying to hit numbers. I get private equity. They're the numbers people. I could never do what they do because quite frankly, I can't fucking do math. However, like they also are there and they are not as a franchisor for a reason. So there's a lot of things that are not aligning that are starting to align in terms of the communication and understanding where that push and pull comes from, because as objective as the numbers can be, those are so influenced by the subjective nature of franchising and trying to mold those thought processes together and see how they're intertwined. Of course, it was going to take a while. And I think that making noise about the responsible franchising is now coming from enough people and enough successful brands for it to probably have sped up that learning curve.
So, so then now that you dropped that bomb, if an emerging brand is listening and until that bubble actually pops, what do emerging brands do?
So I think that it all kind of goes back to the why. So why did you want a franchise? And I don't care if you're just starting or you've already got a couple franchisees under your belt. The why being, is it because you're overwhelmed in your operations and you think people opening up more, it's going to be less work? Because if that's the case, it's not. And the more money you invest, it's going to just continue to be exponential, right? But there's a lot of benefits there. So I think asking yourself, why do I want to grow in FranDev? And all you need is one franchisee to be a franchise, and that's okay. And is it because you want to sell units because you have to pay to keep the lights on? Because then you shouldn't be doing FranDev, because you're not going to be able to support other people if you can't support your own internal operations. Is it that, everything's going well and we'd like to continue to expand? That's great. But to what extent? You are perfectly fine saying, I want to bring on 3 this year, and that's what I can afford. And that's what I'm going to, and that's good. And if you're supporting them, that slow growth is going to build over time. If you're out here saying, well, I want to open 20, and I say, why? What are you going to tell me? Because that's what you projected. Why did you project that? What did you buy that you have to cover to project 20 franchisees? So I think it gets back to, is it how it looks? Is it because you want to sell in 5 years? And at the end of the day, I think if you're an emerging brand, and I talked to one of the emerging brands I consult with recently about this, I said, look, you're up against it in terms of you want to grow relatively quickly. responsibly, but still quickly. You don't have the money to cover the benchmark numbers it takes to grow that I'm telling you. And so now I've had the same talk with two different franchises. One, I said, why do you want to get to 50 units in 3 years? Well, because, I want to sell and I think I'm going to miss my opportunity. Well, I said, baby girl, franchising is not going anywhere. Private equity is not going anywhere. And the industry you're in for sure isn't going anywhere. It's the most recurring thing outside of home cleaning that I can imagine. And I was like, so if the reason is you're in a rush because you're afraid you're going to miss an opportunity, I would bet to say that growing too fast is going to dismiss more opportunities than not. Now, on the flip side, I talked to a guy and I said, well, what's the reason you want to grow so fast? You can't afford it. You've got a couple options here. And he said, well, I want to retire and I want to sell in 3 years. No, I'm not scared. I want to be done. I said, in that case, maybe it would be good to bring on an equity type partner to help you cover some costs, or investment part, cover these costs to grow at this rate. And then, if you have a better multiple, and then you can sell. So I think they really need to ask themselves, where does that Fran Dev number fall in my roadmap personally and operationally? And my recommendation would be that you shouldn't have to grow in Fran Dev to cover any sort of internal costs. The rule of thumb is that franchise fee covers your cost of marketing to build a franchise. And if you're starting to venture too far out of those lines, that's when you're going to start feeling that push and pull. And eventually, you don't want to over promise or, be stretched too thin on a budget of, now you have sold enough, you've already overextended yourself, and now you have to come up with some money to support them and build more systems and, implement new fees that you didn't think was going to happen. And it's going to come at you fast. So, I kind of tell franchisees or franchisors, like, when you have another child, it's exponentially harder. It never gets easier when you hit a certain number, because there's always a new challenge. So I went from 1 to 2 and it was like, oh, this is 50% harder. But if I add a third, no, I added a third and it was absolute chaos. And now I'm like, absolutely no, we're not having 4. So, you got to look at it that way, is that every franchisee you add is someone's livelihood, it's someone's life. And those are more than just numbers. Those are more than just paychecks. That is something, that is a child, that a franchisee essentially is a child of the franchisor. That's why they call it the parent-child relationship. And you should be treating them as that. They're not a dime a dozen. And that's certainly not what you're paying for.
That's great. Sorry, that's why I was having a crazy thought now, because we chatted about this kind of an inside thing between me, Liane, and Ali. But from what you were saying, no, what I was saying is, with the child thing, I was thinking the opposite. I'm like, you know what? I have 2 and I'm ready to pay whatever it is to have 3 and 4. I don't give a shit what it costs.
You go from man to man to zone, and all shit goes haywire. I'll tell you.
I know. But you're right.
There's a meme and it's like, listen, I don't hang out with people who have 1 kid. It's too stressful. They're too involved. I don't hang out with people who have 2 kids because it's still too much. That's like double the attention. We only hang out with people who have 3 or more because we don't give a fuck. Like, oh, you got bit by a raccoon? Is it rabies? Don't care. Like, they're kids, you'll be fine. And that's like, my 3rd kid thrives in chaos. And like, they're like, why does she eat so fast? I was like, apparently in our house is first come, first serve. So every man for themselves.
Yeah, I can so see that, I guess. I'm still in the cocoon with just 2. So yeah, having 3
all
and 4.
fun and games until you gotta go to zone defense.
Yeah.
You got a big enough bar, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. No, so what would you say then for those, I know we talked in your presentation at Let's Grow, which was phenomenal, by the way. You talked a little bit about a little bit more specific into what's working and what's not from a lead generation standpoint for those emerging brands. Off the top of your head, what were, like, top 3, top 4 best things? I know trade shows is number 1, but outside of that, what else worked for you for the franchise brands?
Trade shows are phenomenal, especially yours, when there's an understanding of the geo targeting and area focus behind it. Don't just go to a trade show to go to a trade show. Go to a trade show in a specific. That's why you have so many. So there's always opportunities for people.
Boom.
He didn't even pay you to say that. Wow.
Since Let's Grow, I've figured out even better ways to explain this cluster of my head. And basically, one of the best ways I can describe it is, obviously, you have to use digital because there's not enough time in the day. And right now, you have to pay to use it. That's what we've just talked about. Like, you got to pay to play. A lot of people get up my ass about, well, Meta works for me. Oh, it doesn't work for me. And I'm like, here's my thought. If you have a budget that is, let's say I usually recommend monthly minimum 7K spend. I say, hot take, controversial, anything under that. And I'm talking like couple thousands. I'm not talking like 6,999. But if you're like at a 3 or 4,000, I consider it wasted ad spend because it's not enough to compete and it's not enough to convince people to go and Google you specifically and convert. And the reason I know that is because on the consumer side, for something that's anywhere between $10 and I don't know, probably $5,000, it takes people. I mean, it's going to climb no matter with the increase in price, but it's anywhere between 11 and 15 times for them to click yes and remember you. You're not going to get those impressions on a $3,000 to $5,000 budget. So in essence, they see you, they forget about you. There's nowhere for them to convert after. There's no follow-up.
Especially with brands with no brand equity. Like if you're talking emerging brands, you have no brand equity, so they don't even know who you are.
And it's hard enough for Fran Dev, for the biggest brands, if you see an advertisement for Subway, like their brand is so strong, you're probably thinking sandwiches. You're not automatically thinking Fran Dev. So, you're always playing that game as well.
True.
And so when I say, if you have a budget that's, let's say 7 to 10,000, and when we talk about, or I'll even say, 7 to 20,000. When we talk about Fran Dev, we're talking in the tens of thousands of dollars. We're not talking in the single thousands. And the reason I say that is because a cost per lead, and this is not including the lead generation portals that are capped, is typically $300. A qualified lead, meaning picked up the phone, has minimum 75K to invest, is about $1,200. So when you're talking about a 7,000, we're talking about 6 to 7-ish leads per month for that spend. We're not talking in the 20s and 30s. So if you have a budget that's $7,000 to $20,000, you have to use that money and spend it in the areas that people already have the search intent for. So the Google, the PPC, and not in the top franchises to buy. It needs to be very nuanced so that you get the most out of it. And then when we say Meta, when was the last time you went on Facebook and were like, I'm considering a career change. I'm considering a business change. Like, literally never. And even if you did, it's LinkedIn. And still, those fuckers haven't figured it out either. LinkedIn is expensive as shit. And that's how I built my career. Like, live, love, respect to LinkedIn. But I did not pay for an ad on that sucker. And so for this Google, like, if you don't have a healthy enough budget, and now I'm talking like over 10 grand, or excuse me, 20 grand plus, why would you be paying to convince people to look into a opportunity, which then you do not have the qualified budget to convert them because you've wasted it trying to convince them to be a franchisee in general of something, and then they go and they're like, oh, I thought I was looking at Z-Bar and here's, Cars by Maddie, and I'm going to use that. So, and that meta spend has to be used super wisely, and it has to be when you have an overextended budget so that you can now convince people to franchise and then convert them once you've convinced them. So, for emerging brands, I say like you got to just put it into PPC. Make sure that you're using an independent or someone that knows Fran Dev in and out. And quite frankly, I would recommend talking to independent consultants out there, such as Liane, myself, about best ways to go about this. Because quite frankly, agencies are expensive. They're expensive for a reason. I would say 70% say they know Fran Dev and don't really. 30% do, know they do, and can charge for what they do. So for an emerging brand, that's tough. So I'd say reach out to your network, probably find an individual that knows it or does it or is willing to learn with you. Don't run a smart ad campaign. Make sure your website's set up. Like if you're going for Fran Dev, there is no rush. There is no rush. You will always get the quality franchisees. People are not running out. They're not. Smart people, maybe they're running out. I mean, I'm not one of them, so that's not me. But like there's no one's gonna claim a franchisee that's yours that should have been your, like, people meant to be in your system that are gonna succeed, you will get them. So before you rush into Fran Dev, make sure you've got all of your bases covered. Talk to people, talk to other franchisors. How do I do Fran Dev? How do I do a website? What should I say? You know, there's a lot of nuances there so that when you are ready to go live, as much of that budget as possible is going to meet those people that you want, not just anyone, not the people you want to convince to franchise, but initially those first 5 to 10 that are going to grow with you. And that's a different sector of people that are franchisee number 500 or 200. You know, you're looking for the people that want to grow with you and are going to want to invest. And those people deserve and need a solid foundation of a brand to do that. And if you don't, and you just kind of spray it all out there, you get every Tom, Dick, and Harry interested, chances are once you really get your feet under you in Fran Dev and maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line, you're going to wish, I wish those guys weren't in my system anymore because they've got a great territory and they're subpar.
I have 2 follow-up questions. So
He says with a smirk.
do you think so I know PPC is a great way, but do you think there's an omni-channel approach? Like I know like with limited budgets are that's what they are, but is there a halo effect to being in multiple places and not having your eggs all in one basket? Say Google goes down for a few months. I worked with a brand that they were down for 3 months and then they went down for 3 months. So they went dark and so they lost a lot of time. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I have heard your halo effect rule, but I wonder if that's changed.
No, I think that there is. And if a brand came to me and said, look, I have, and I'm not saying you have to have $7,000 to spend, but if you're spending less than that, then you need to consult with a professional so you know that there's, like you said, an omni-channel, a halo, a flowing effect. So if a brand came to me and said, look, I have 7,000 all in, I wouldn't put that all in PPC. I would probably put 55 or 5,000 in it. I'd put another maybe 1,000 in lead portals or maybe 2,000. And I'm not sure where I would put the other 1,000, but you know, something of that nature. So you want to go where the people are searching. And there's a reason why even the best of the best, the neighborly brands, the Inspire brands, they're all on the lead portals. Yes, we know it's noise, but that's where people are starting their search. They're going to see you on there and potentially, and it's proven there's a halo effect that your organic traffic goes up when you're on those sites. So I would always spread it there. And you know, maybe I spend another 1,000 in Meta, but I'm not doing it with a lead form. I'm doing it with a huge disclaimer, a special creative, and a specific landing page to help and nurture that and push through the more qualified leads rather than the looky-loos or the I don't know. So you definitely want an omni-channel approach. I eventually think that CTV should be in there. And I think that that's going to start being a craze of where it's, you know, you come up, you're watching Hulu and it's this big ass QR code and a real happy family saying, I make it home in time for dinner. And then you might see that on Facebook. And then you might, you know, see it you might be like, oh, what is this franchise? And you might land on Franchise Gator and they might see Soccer Shots and then they might Google it, or they might see it on Facebook again and then convert there. So I definitely love the omni-channel approach. I think it's going to work better when CTV is more woven in. But again, with TV comes creative, and you got to have the right creative to make it work. And I think that kind of what I tell people is building the budget backwards. So you got to know your cost per acquisition. And if you don't, then use a benchmark. So then you can say, where is it broken? Is it qualified leads to closing, because then it's a sales issue. If it's leads to qualified leads, it's a placement issue, meaning you're getting a lot of unqualifieds from Facebook. Maybe you put more of that money in PPC. If it's clicks to leads, meaning you're not getting enough leads, that conversion rate, then it's your landing page or where you're sending them. They're bouncing off of it. And if you're not getting enough clicks, then quite frankly, your creative probably sucks, or it's not getting in front of enough people and it's a budget problem. So for Dev, the more you can budget it out backwards, the better able you're going to be to optimize that channel, especially when you have a tight budget to work with.
Awesome. I'm gonna ask one more question and then our time is up because
I talk a lot.
time flies when you're happy. Well, it sounds like you have margaritas and you're drinking a Bud Light, so the words flow better.
Flowing, baby.
So my last question just kind of rounds it out. So we talked a lot about like top of funnel, like you're casting a wide net to even convince people to become a franchisee, which is a waste of your dollars, your limited dollars. But once you get them and they've raised their hand to your brand, then what? It's not just lead gen. It's not just bringing them in. Then there's a whole nurture process. Do you want to talk to me about our nurture process? Because I think a lot of brands miss that part.
I think my kids would be like, nurture? Have you met my mom? Like, we were fighting for our lives out of the womb. No, I think that it's often overlooked, and there's a huge push and pull in franchise development on who should do that. Is it the marketing team? Very rarely do you see a franchise, especially an emerging one, that has a franchise marketing development person. So I think, the first thing is realizing that you don't, this consumer, will say, who's going to buy your brand, they don't have, aside from validations that you give at probably the end, they don't have reviews to go on, right? They're not on Amazon trying to find, the best 5 stars or the most reviewed. So you need to continue to give them that consumer confidence. And you also need to give them that kind of social proof, as Trevor Rappleye from Franchise Filming would say, in that the salesperson is going to do what they need to do. Even the best ones, who we don't even like to call salespeople, because most of the time they're trying to convince people not to prove that they really can and want to. But at the end of the day, that person knows, like, this is my consultant, this is my salesperson. They're supposed to get me through the funnel. It's marketing's job to, again, give them that proof and that nurture in the background. So that's building out email campaigns or text campaigns. And it's not talking about how great we are, or don't forget to schedule your call, or it's not pushy. It's purely probably educational. It's maybe it's entertaining. Of course, you can have some that might have an exclusive, like if you're doing an end of year and you want to get those limbo pipeliners through the next step. But for the most part, it's validation of, here's an email with a embed video of, this is Mandy, and she was an E2 visa, and now it happily lives literally next to Disney World, and is the best decision she's ever made, which is a true story. It's on, Made Pro. Or hey, did you know, the pest control industry is growing by X amount every year, and here's an article from Pest World to show you why. So some of those things that give them confidence, keep you top of mind, and help the salespeople push them through the funnel. So it's not just, here's what I'm showing you, do this. It's kind of like they think they're getting it on their own. They're learning, they're expanding. It's stuff they can share with their network. And that's super, super important. There's a lot of touch points. There's a lot of nuances that go into that. And it also all goes back to your Fran Dev website. They're not just visiting that as first touch. They're going back, and that is their Bible. And the reason it's funny, it's kind of like Bible with pictures, because there's a reason we give kids who are newer to reading, picture books. They want to learn, they want to see, they want to be excited about it. We don't throw, this huge, like, Moby Dick in front of them and we're like, enjoy. Like, they don't know what they're reading. They don't know. So that's kind of what the FDD is. We can't just throw the FDD and be like, no, trust me, it's a good book. I'm pretty sure I don't even know how to read at this point. So, that website becomes their peace of mind, their home base, their Bible, if you will. That is what they're always going to continue referencing. So as much as you want to just make it a sales page, you have to remember It's not about you in FranDev. It's about them. And it's about how you help them live their best life. And the more you can frame that, the more you can support that, the better you are at not only supporting that person and that idea and franchising as a whole, you're also supporting your sales team and what they need to do.
Awesome.
I say the most random shit. I was on a franchise call and it was like one of those like, ooh, all franchisees. Like I had like my pinstripe coat on back there. I literally was looking out and I was like, oh, I was like, got distracted by a bird and like had to pretend I was like thinking. And I was like, that's like how, that's just like, I probably have ADD. I probably need medication for it. It's all over the place, but somehow, sometimes it comes together.
So good. It's like the quilt, you know?
Yes, yes.
All your thoughts are just woven together and they're all little.
Here they are. Little fun
Yeah.
verse. My mom calls it star conversations, just like up and down and in and out. Get there eventually.
And
You're
it
a
just
star.
did. Are you kidding me? I feel bad for whoever has to follow up this podcast.
Hashtag Ben Woodruff. I would
Right.
wait.
Sorry, guys, we only had one episode.
Jeez. Well, we probably should have started with this, but for those of you that don't know Madeleine, you should check her out on LinkedIn. Madeleine Zook, currently serving as Chief Marketing Officer at Premium Service Brands, is recognized as a prominent figure in the franchise landscape, boasting extensive experience as a multi-unit, multi-brand franchisee, supplier, and business consultant. She has played a pivotal role in fostering community engagement within the franchise sector, notably through her leadership in the Art of the Franchise Marketing podcast series, consistently ranked among the top performers globally. Zook's insights have been featured in esteemed publications, including Forbes, Entrepreneur, Fortune, USA Today, and Inc. Maddie, is there anywhere you haven't been?
No, but I hate, now I'm never giving anyone my bio again because I always think it's for like a landing page. And when they read it back to me, I'm like, oh my God, awkward.
Especially on video, you have to just go like,
wait, hold on. And there's more.
oh, wait.
Go.
Oh, you want me to keep going? Zook is also the founder of Fran Careers, a franchise executive recruiting firm, and the driving force behind Together She Can, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to providing hygiene care to homeless communities. She resides in Philadelphia with her husband, dogs, and 3 children, which we heard all about today. And I do
Well,
want
I thought it was 4. What happened there?
No,
I see that. No more brands, no more kids.
Okay.
she's saying on the 4th day. The other thing I want to highlight, because I know you won't, is you recently got recognized as one of the top 10 CMOs to follow from USA Today. And I think that's
Thank you.
pretty exciting.
Thank you. I know they sent me this nice little trophy behind me. And my kids literally were like, does that mean you're good at your job? I was like, that is so rude. But yeah, that's quite an honor that I haven't quite been able to swallow. And like my dad and my husband say, well, they're watching something. I'm not sure what they're watching, but they're following something. So yeah,
That's
that was
awesome.
pretty
Well, I'm so proud of you and so excited to have you here. If anybody wants to follow up with all of your hot takes or get in touch, how do they find you?
You can shoot me a message on LinkedIn or you can email me at mzook@francareers.com.
Got it.
Do we have 60 seconds left for her to tell us about Fran Careers?
Sure. Yeah, whatever time Maddie wants. Maddie, get.
Come on.
So Fran Careers, because I talk to so many people and I know a lot of franchise execs in here feel the same way. We want to keep the great people in franchising, and it's kind of like the NFL. We switch jerseys here and there, keep it cool, keep it fresh. So we started Fran Careers, which is an executive franchise recruiting firm. Instead of the typical 20 to 30% placement fee that a regular what are they called? Recruiting firms would place. We charge 10%, no exclusivity, and there's a 90-day guarantee, meaning if someone doesn't work out, we'll replace you. And the best part, or replace that candidate for you, the best part is that everything is cloaked. So candidates can come in that might be looking and might not be ready, or that are fully ready and looking, or not looking, but also want to be informed of opportunities. And the same thing comes for the company. Everybody's cloaked until we get written approval for an introduction. So it gives people a little bit of a safer space to see what's out there, see the opportunities. And, you know, we started this in June of last year, and I think we're up to 10 or 12 people in full-time positions. And it's awesome to see them at conferences and growing in their new roles. So again, you know, we're trying to keep franchising in franchising, and it's been a fun adventure. And you can definitely, if you're interested in either looking or hiring, you can go to francareers.com.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
So I always say franchising is very incestuous. It's kind of sounds, why don't you use it as your tagline? Or
I mean, don't tell me with a good time.
All right. Well, hey, thank you all for joining us for our inaugural first episode here with Maddie. We certainly learned a lot. Liane, did you learn anything today?
I think I learned a few things.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
she like, Liane and I send each other the most off-kilter ratchet memes on LinkedIn, so we know each other a little too well to be learning things, but hey, I'll do my best.
Too much.
Love it. All right. Well, that's LFG After Dark. So if you like what you heard here, guys, then please give us a 5-star review. You know, it helps us grow. And follow us on Spotify and YouTube and wherever else we're going to be. Subscribe. We'll see you in a couple of weeks for more unfiltered education and content on both sides of the border. In the meantime, here's what's coming up on our calendar. Franchise Mingle. Liane, what do we have coming up?
Well, Michael, we have the National Franchise Show in Houston on May 18th and 19th.
I'll be there.
Oh my
I will
gosh.
be there.
Wild.
Anything else?
IFA's 2024 Legal Symposium on May 5th and 7th, probably just happened by the time this one comes out. Young Conference, May 13th and 15th. Maddie, I think you're leading a panel.
We sure are. Hot takes. Imagine that, with Heather McLeod, Gabriella, and Brooke.
I know you just tagged me in a post on LinkedIn that I'm about to contradict, but can't wait to do it. I've been crafting my words. Hello Mastermind Executive Marketers Retreat in Fort Worth. Super excited about that one. National Franchise Show in Orlando. I will also be there. Michael, you?
I will be there. You'll be there?
It's a hop, skip, and a jump away from me. Thanks for having it close. Can you have more closer to me? Our favorite FBR Operations Summit, October 22nd and 24th through 24th in Denver. And tell us what's happening in Toronto, November 6th and 7th.
You heard the announcement. You hopefully shared it. Let's Grow Canada Franchise Assembly. It was such a wild ride for all the amazing speakers, Maddie included, that we decided to bring Let's Grow north of the border straight to Toronto. And it is happening November 6th and 7th. We will share more information as it comes.
This episode is brought to you by Tenet Financial, Franchise Assembly, the National Franchise Show, and Hello Mastermind. Thanks, Maddie. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you
for having me.
Bye.